I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Everybody would please bow their heads. We'll say a quick invocation. Dear Lord, just want to thank you for this day. Thank you for our opportunity to serve the people of Anderson. Just please be with the leaders of Anderson, the leaders of our state, and the leaders of our country, especially during these times. We ask this in your name. Amen. All right, everybody has a copy of the minutes from last November 18th, 2021 is the last time we met. Any additions or corrections? Have a motion to approve the minutes. We have a motion. We have a second. We have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay, we'll get right into it. Is there any addenda to the agenda?
No addenda other than the election of officers. It's the beginning of the new fiscal year, so we always do that in July.
Okay, we'll do that after
the
public hearings.
Sure.
Okay. All right, we'll go straight to public hearings. In AA 2201, a request for a variance from sign requirements at 2011 East Greenville Street.
Very good, thank you. This property is located on East Greenville Street, as the chairman mentioned, highlighted in blue. Just to give you a better perspective, this is the AnMed Health Campus, kind of across the street. You have Burger King to the south, Bojangles on the other side of the property. So that's the location on East Greenville Street. And the applicant's requesting a variance from sign requirements in order to add signage on the southern side of their building, which is a secondary building wall. And this is the area we're talking about. As you can see, this is a proposed shopping center. It's actually being built now. There's 3 tenants. And the building or the portion we're talking about tonight is on the southern side. So they can have signs on the front because that's a primary building wall facing the street, but they're asking for additional signage on the southern side where their drive-through window is. And you'll see that this is a Dunkin' Donuts. And again, the sign guidelines allow you to have signage on primary building walls, and the definition of a primary building wall are walls that are facing a street or facing a parking lot with a public entrance. And as you can see with this, this parking lot is located over here, the main street is over here, so that's the primary building wall. This will be considered a secondary building wall where their drive-through window is, and that's why they're asking for signage, because that's where their drive-through window is. And always looking for a hardship in particular situations like this, and according to the applicant, their hardship is that the drive-through window and lane will actually be their primary serving area, which essentially acts as a public entrance. It will be a very busy and active side. And being a strip shopping center, they're limited in terms of having signage. You know, if they were on this end, they could have signage because it faces the street, but over here, they do not. Just to give you a perspective, this is the front of the building. All of these signs are currently allowed, so we're not really talking about that tonight. What we're talking about is the southern side of the building where the drive-through window is. They're asking for signage here and also right here. And when you consider sign variances, the board has certain criteria to look at. You need to make sure that A and B in the guidelines are met, along with either C or D. And I'll go through them real quick. A is the adjustment for the proposed sign will not significantly increase or lead to street level clutter, and will not adversely dominate the visual image of the area, and will not be inconsistent with the objectives of the sign regulations. B is the sign will not create a traffic or safety hazard. C, the adjustment will allow a unique sign of exceptional design or style, which will be visible landmark. Or D, the adjustment will allow a sign that is more consistent with the architecture and development of the site. And we believe that it does meet both A and B, and also D, which gives us reason to recommend approval. We think that the drive-through window is an active area. It's kind of a primary serving area, so we believe that serves the purpose of what your justifications are. I took some photographs. This is the front of the building. Again, the signage that's proposed on the front of the building is already allowed. We're talking about the southern side of the building. And I wanted to show you these because, to be honest with you, the signage will really not be visible from the street very much. I was sitting in the Burger King parking lot here where we'll be able to see the signage which will be placed right here and right here, but with the landscaping at Burger King, it blocks a good bit of the visibility as you're driving northward on Greenville Street. So again, this signage is really geared for the internal circulation for the drive-through window. But again, we do recommend approval of this request. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I went out there today and to look at it, and I certainly have no problem in granting the variance for putting the Dunkin', the logo up there, because on the opposite, just up the road on 81, Bojangles has their sign on the side of the building also, and to this side, Burger King has a logo on this side of the building also. What I'm having a problem with is being able to put a slogan in addition to their sign on the side of the building. None of the other businesses out there have that, and I don't know why. I mean, that's a lot of verbiage to put on there, and that sign looks to me like it's going to be close to as big as the Dunkin' sign.
Yeah, both signs equal about a little over 40 square feet, which is well within our sign guidelines. If, say for instance, if there was street frontage, it would be well under. If it had street frontage, you could have I believe, 150 square feet of signage on that wall. So this is roughly 1/3 of what would be allowed if there was a street frontage there. That verbiage that you're talking about, that's just part of their logo package and their marketing. Again, it's lower to the street, so the people reading that will be the ones sitting in the drive-through window, to be quite honest with you.
Well, I for one am opposed to granting that portion of the variance.
Let me ask you this, if he didn't have that portion, would they be able to put up temporary signs on the wall, like posters, that kind of stuff?
We don't really govern internally circulating signage that's meant to be seen for the people driving through the parking lot. If it was something that was
Talking about putting one on the side of the wall.
Yeah, something like
Exterior of the
that.
wall.
We see them all the time in fast food restaurants, and typically they're in windows,
Yeah.
posted. So we don't regulate that when it's for internal circulation.
But do you regulate it on the wall?
On the wall, same way. If it was meant to be for internal use only, we really wouldn't, unless it was something that was blatant.
I just, instead of having that, if they went around it by putting a poster up there, I think that looks better than a poster.
I didn't know you could just stick posters on a wall.
If it's for internal circulation, a lot of times people do that. We don't govern that because it's not visible from the street. Now, there are certain instances where we
That
must...
to me is just more visual clutter. I've said my piece.
All right, any other discussion amongst the board? Any other questions for staff?
I'll make a motion to approve it. I don't see a problem with it.
As is? Approve as is?
Yeah.
Okay. Have a second for the motion?
Hey. Got a second? No, I was just, before a second, I didn't hear what the...
He has a motion to approve it as written
Okay.
in the program here.
Yeah, I'll second that.
We have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign?
Aye.
Okay, and it will pass. Second item is AA 2202, a request for a variance from setback requirements at 520 Fair Street.
Yes, thank you. This is an exciting project. If you're familiar with this piece of property, you know this is kind of an industrial type area off of Murray Avenue. The outline of the property, which is a little over 9 acres, is located in blue. You have Murray Avenue, the main street through the area located here. You have frontage on Murray. You also have frontage on Tribble Street, the backside on Fair Street, and just a little bit on Clink Scales, but the majority of the development is focused on the street frontages with Murray, Fair, and Tribble Streets. And as the chairman mentioned, this is a request for variances from front yard setbacks. This property is 9 acres in size, and there's a multifamily residential development proposed for the site. The development will have 5 new buildings. Get this on. 5 new buildings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, And then there's an existing old historic mill building, which will also be converted into multifamily units as well. And a total of 126 residential units are planned. There'll be a clubhouse, other amenities on the site. It'll be serving downtown and the surrounding area. The applicant's requesting variances from front yard setbacks along both Fair Street and along Tribble Street. The majority of the development, as I mentioned, faces those three streets. So front yard setbacks of 25 feet apply from Murray, Tribble, and Fair Street. Based on the zoning district, this front yard setback is 25 feet. And as you know, any street frontage is considered a front yard setback. But the applicant is requesting specifically that the setback along Fair Street be reduced from 25 feet to a 10-foot setback, which is really equivalent to a rear setback in the GC guidelines. And they look at this as the rear of the property. This is the front of the property, how it will be oriented, and this will be the side. So essentially reducing the setback from 25 feet to 10 feet, which is asking for a 15-foot variance on the rear. The setback along Tribble Street, they're requesting that it's reduced from 25 feet to a 7.5-foot setback, and 7.5 feet is what you typically see for a side yard setback in the GC zoning district. So that would be essentially a 17.5-foot setback request. The applicant indicates that there are unique features of the property that creates the need to have setback relief, as we just mentioned. You have an interesting configuration of the development, how it's shaped. They look at Murray Avenue being the front of their development, their entrance, where there will be a 25-foot setback. They consider this to be the rear of the development, which would have a rear setback per the zoning guidelines, and then this would be the side. And the applicant listed several hardships due to the unusual shape of the property and the fact there are multiple street frontages. A lot of times when you have several street frontages, it does limit you with setback issues. Additionally, in order to save and utilize the existing mill building, as you can see, it is where it is. It's located there, so they have to work around it, and it's kind of angled. It's not squared to the property, so they had some challenges as far as site layout for parking and orienting everything else for access as well. There's a small creek on the northern side of the existing building, which limits where you can build. It pushes things southward. And also there are some trees, large trees that they wish to save to help soften the image of the area. So that also plays into their reasoning for the need for the setbacks. They do plan extensive landscaping around the perimeter of the property. So if the variances are granted, you will have that buffer between the property line and the buildings. But we do recommend approval based on the applicant's justification of hardship. Reducing the setbacks really should not have a negative impact to the surrounding properties, particularly because there will be buffering and landscaping around it. And again, this is a very exciting project we're seeing. It's something that we need in downtown area. This is a side note from a residential perspective. But again, we recommend approval. The applicant is here if you have any specific questions about the proposal or the development.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
Is she going to say anything?
We can, yeah,
The applicant would like to add something. This is
Absolutely.
Cecilia.
if you would just state your name when you get up here.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Probst. I work with SGA out of our Greenville office. I'm the landscape architect on the project. Thank you very much for considering our request. As Maurice mentioned, we are providing the type L1 buffer along all the street frontages. You can see it's pretty, there's lots of trees buffering the views of the buildings. And then I would also like to add that although we're requesting they be reduced to 10 feet and 7.5 feet, in all cases we're actually 12 to 15 feet setback from the property line. The way the buffer ordinance reads is that it's half of the setback. So in order to provide our secondary means of egress out of the buildings in the back, we actually had to push the buildings further back than what our setbacks are. So even though we're asking for 7.5, the minimum we're showing is 12 feet setback, which would only be a 13-foot reduction. So thank you very much. I'm here for any other questions you may have.
Any questions for the applicant? Any discussion amongst the board?
Mr. Chairman, I am for anything that's gonna make downtown look a lot better, and this is gonna be, looks like a project that's gonna be an asset to that. When I read this, when I read about the 2 oak trees, you had me right there, okay? We need a lot of those, and I've seen a lot of them that have been cut down for sidewalk purposes and stuff like that, so I, for one, am in favor of this, and I'd like to make a motion that we approve this.
Second?
All right, I have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay, it's been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we have one more hearing, AA 2203, a request for a variance for a second electrical meter at 507 Glenwood Avenue.
Yes. 507 Glenwood Avenue is located in the shaded area. You can see it's a very large lot compared to others in the area. This is Edgewood, this is Blair Street, the Blair Street Park, and again, this is Glenwood, which runs east-west through the city. And you see these from time to time, and but you know that per the City of Anderson codes, single-family zone properties may have only one electrical meter per property. That's to ensure that people don't convert buildings or something along that line to residential uses or even commercial uses in the area. But the code does indicate that the Board of Zoning Appeals may grant relief from this provision in certain circumstances. As you know, there are certain situations where a second power meter may be required. And in this particular case, the applicant's requesting a variance from this provision in order to install a second meter on the property to be dedicated for a swimming pool heater only. The applicant has the pool heater already and attempted to use the heater with the existing electrical service that's on the house and had all kinds of issues. They experienced flickering lights, power loss. They even had a small fire on a service wire. They called Duke Energy out to help fix the problem, and they did. And also at the same time, Duke Energy suggested that in order to use this pool heater, a second power meter would obviously be needed, based on the fact they had so many problems beforehand. We do recommend approval in this particular case. The meter, if it is allowed, it does not authorize the owner to utilize the service for any other purpose other than for that pool heater, particularly for additional residential or commercial uses. We will certainly inspect it for compliance to make sure that all permits are issued, and during the inspection process we'll make sure that it's quite evident that this meter will be used for this purpose only and not to be set up for any residential or commercial uses in the future. Any questions for me?
Any questions for staff?
Being as we have approved many of these secondary outlets, they're far more controversial than this one. I don't see how we could not approve this one, so I'm going to make a motion that the request be approved.
I second that motion, and along with what Kent said, we always have a problem with these meters, especially if there's a building in the back, that it's got a workshop, this is about a pool, for goodness sakes.
That's right, yeah. It's a situation where their property is very wooded and it's extremely shady, and that's why they have a pool heater. I don't know if there's a lot of pool heaters in town, to be honest with you, so that's probably the first one I've seen, for this particular request.
I second his
All right,
motion.
so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, that's been approved also.
Thank you.
Now let's go back. I think Maurice said we need to elect officers again for this year.
Yes, sir. You can open up for nominations for election of officers for the fiscal year what is this, 22, 23.
All right. I think this is rubber stamp, but we'll get through the process.
I make a motion that we continue with our chairman here as chairman of the board here.
I'll second that.
All right. I have me as, the motion is me as the president. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, I guess I'm
We
in.
need a vice chair.
All right,
And a secretary.
okay? Okay,
Here's the motion down there.
we have a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, where Kent be the vice chairman.
Have a second?
I second.
All right, we have a motion for Kent Anderson being vice chairman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay, Kent, you're the vice chairman. All right, now we need a motion for secretary.
Yes. Shalandria has been the secretary for the last couple of years, so.
I think, unless one of y'all want to take over the duties.
Just don't look my way.
We can do this by acclamation instead of having a vote.
Well, we'll just make it, Shalandra.
That's a given right there.
All right, I'll make a motion. I guess I can make a motion. Shalandra be the secretary. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right. Any other?
That is it for today. Thank you for attending. We gave you a long enough break, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. All right. All right, I have a motion to adjourn
Motion to adjourn.
and a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. We are adjourned.
Let me show you.